This is BKL Nightly. I'm Thad Brown, joined by Caleb Carr and Rachel Liebert. Caleb and Rachel in the studio. I am here outside the KeyBank Center where the Sabres are playing Game 5 against Montreal, but we are talking tonight about the Bills' schedule. It is released. It is official. We're going to dive into all the different games, the topics, the things that people are going to be talking about for the next few weeks and obviously into the fall as the Bills go through their 2026 schedule. Guys, let's start with the holiday games. I think that was the number one story for everybody. Not a shock that the Bills ended up playing on a holiday. We talked about that on Monday, that I think it was a likely scenario where the Bills would get a holiday game. But they got both. They got both Thanksgiving and Christmas, home against the Chiefs on Thanksgiving, on the road against the Broncos. Caleb, let's start with you. Just react to the Bills getting both holidays scheduled on their 2026 ledger this year.
I mean, we've talked about it a few times. It's not like a huge surprise given the fact I think you brought up that they haven't had a single holiday game since like 2022. So it's not a huge surprise that they at least have one. Having two is a little like, all right, I guess but I think the NFL is also really making an effort, and it's easy to see from what games that they picked, that the NFL is making an effort to make Thanksgiving and Christmas relevant. The past couple of years, it really hasn't been. There's been a handful of good games, but for the most part, especially last year on Christmas, there wasn't really a need for fans to watch because it was between teams that really weren't that good. And I mean, part of that is because the Chiefs weren't great down the stretch. But I think, playing the Chiefs on Thanksgiving and then following it up with the Broncos on Christmas, that's two insane games, two of probably the best games that the Bills have on the schedule, like viewing wise for NFL fans. So those are going to be two loaded days for sure.
I think we all maybe expected the Thanksgiving game. I mean, Caleb was right about it being the Chiefs, but I did not expect them to, like you said, get both, especially Christmas. And yes, those are the games that they're scheduling these games because they are the big games. And no matter what the Bills look like at that point of the season, I think people are still going to be excited to watch a Bills-Broncos matchup.
Yeah.
However, it does make me wonder, this is such a brand new era for the Bills with new head coach. I mean, different moving parts. It makes me wonder at that point in the season what the Bills will look like and if people really will care about that game as much. I mean, yes, it's on the holiday. You're going to probably watch it no matter what if it's on. But at the same time, it's like if the Bills don't have a great season, and then what do they do at that point where it's like maybe the Broncos are and the Bills are kind of just hanging out there and it's not as good as a game. So it'll be interesting to see what leads up to those points.
For a team that's been in the divisional round of the playoffs the last 6 years, I think the last thing the NFL is worried about is the Bills being the bad team in December. Not that it can't happen. We're going to talk about this schedule. It is pretty brutal. But no matter who you schedule for those Christmas Day games, there's always a risk that the game might not work out. We saw it with the Chiefs last year. The thing that stands out to me, and Caleb alluded to it a little bit, remember that big ratings number the Chiefs-Cowboys Thanksgiving game got last year? To me, I think the NFL looked at that game and said, the heck with putting average or just okay games on these holidays. Let's go big. Let's put on our best matchups on these holiday games and try and see if we can recreate Chiefs-Cowboys. Because you look through all these games, they're going to be on the holidays. You go back to Thanksgiving, it's Bears-Lions, it's Eagles-Cowboys, Chiefs-Bills, obviously. Those are three of the best games you're going to get all year. If you really took, I think, both the Thanksgiving Day games and the Christmas Day games, and you put it next to a list of the top 20 matchups you could possibly have this season, I think all those games would be on it. So the NFL is shooting the moon this year, and I don't think it's a surprise the Bills are on that. Maybe a surprise they got both those spots, but Josh Allen is the A1 star in the NFL as long as Patrick Mahomes is still injured. So using the Bills in both those spots, I don't think is a huge surprise. Let's back out a little bit on the schedule because those are just two of the national window games the Bills got this year. They're going to play at night 7 different times, 2 times at 4 o'clock. I know people will look at that and say, well, of course, the Bills are now a priority team in the NFL, and I think they always were. But compared to last year, it's 9 national window games this year, 9 national window games last year. The difference was last year it was 5 night games, 4 o'clock games. This year it's 7 and 2. But guys, the Bills are still a main draw, and the league is very much saying that with how they schedule them this year.
Yeah, I mean, we always knew that they were going to have a lot of those night games, and it's sometimes difficult because, I mean, we're so used to the Bills having those 1 o'clock in those 4 o'clock games. I mean, we're not as used to those 4 o'clock games. And for Buffalo to have that many, especially, we'll get to it a little bit later in the show, there's certain stretches where it feels like they don't play in a 1 or like a regular time game for a while. So that can be difficult to adjust to for sure. But I think that at this point, this team has been doing it for so often that it doesn't really matter. You could put them night games every single week, and I don't really think it's going to affect how they play too much. Now, obviously, sometimes you get on those Thursday night lights or Monday night lights, and it makes you play a little bit differently. We've seen that with the Bills a couple times. But I think at this point, this team's good enough where there should be no excuses. Just because you play on Monday night one week and then Saturday night the next and then Christmas the next week, it shouldn't affect. This team's good enough where that shouldn't be an excuse at this point.
Yeah, having this many primetime games doesn't surprise me. I mean, like you said, this is a Bills team that's earned those primetime games. And like you said, Thad, earlier too, when you have Josh Allen, no matter where your team is at any point in the season, Josh Allen is enough for people to watch a primetime game. So I think that in itself is why, the NFL continues to do this, because you have, literally you just have Josh Allen. There's nothing else of an argument for me to put there, is that no matter what you look like at that point of the season, people are going to tune in because Josh Allen, regardless if they're 0-7, which I don't think they're going to be 0-7 at that point, but if they're 0-7 or 7-0 or somewhere in the middle, Josh Allen is going to find a way to make it a good game regardless of who they're against.
I think we've been talking about enough about the primetime games. I mean, look, this is almost like you guys said, a rite of fall now for the Bills to do this every time. Let's go to some of the things that may not have been as heavily rumored before the schedule was released. What caught your eye about what the Bills have on the schedule from some of the things that came out today? Maybe you can still include the national games, the primetime games if you want, but certainly they're going to play 10 other games this year that are not going to be on nighttime TV. Rachel, let's start with you. What was the thing that stood out from this schedule that maybe was a little bit of a surprise?
That they're opening with Houston. I mean, I said this in our last episode that if they start with Houston, I feel like they could be in some trouble. And then here we go. They're going to start with Houston and have a huge task and a huge defense to go up against for that first week. And I mean, maybe not as surprised, but just in terms of how this could affect the first, I guess, 5 games or even up until the bye week for the Bills. This was definitely one that was like, well, this could be kind of a detrimental game to kick off the year and see where Joe Brady's at, see where, all of these new coaches are at with this Houston team that has been the last 2 seasons tough for the Bills to beat. So that definitely for sure it's going to be a fun week 1.
I think the thing that surprised me the most, or caught my eye at least, there's a lot of, we just said, the Bills have 7 primetime games. I think what surprised me was the ones that weren't chosen to be primetime. Baltimore Ravens, I'm really surprised that that's a regular 1 o'clock game, even that it's not like they didn't try to fit it into the 4 o'clock slate. Like, just having that as a 1 o'clock game seems wrong on so many levels. That's going to be a great game, even like given the fact that it's in week 8, as long as both teams are healthy, that's going to be a really good game where you would assume that both teams are starting to kind of figure themselves out, what they are for that year. And then I think we'll talk about it in a little bit too, but the Patriots not being a primetime game, that one kind of stood out to me. I think other than that, all the other teams that I expected to be primetime are primetime, but definitely the Ravens and the Patriots not getting that primetime slot was kind of surprising. Not that the other games that they do have aren't worthy, because they are. The Bills play a lot of really, really good opponents this year. So not that the other games aren't worthy, but those are 2 that I was like, they're layups for the NFL, at least I thought.
The second Patriots game is a 4:25 game, so the league does basically look at those 4:25 games the same as a night game. So I think from that point of view, we still were right about New England being one of those games. But yeah, I think I had Baltimore as my lock night game, and that became a Sunday 1 p.m. game. I think that's a little bit of a factor of the Bills have such a great schedule. You can't play them all in 4 o'clock or nighttime windows, because CBS is going to be mad. At some point, CBS and Fox are going to want a piece of the Bills, a couple opportunities to show their games. The thing that stood out to me was the 3 home games, weeks 2 through 4, because the Bills have more road games than home games this year. You would think if they're going to get 3 of anything in a row, it's going to be a road game. But to have a 3-game homestand to open up the season, the first month of the season, now this means the Bills have 5 home games the last, 13 weeks of the year. They're going to play 4 home games over a 12-week stretch between weeks 5 and week 17. That's going to be a lot of time to be on the road, for a team that obviously we expect to be playing a whole lot of big games down the stretch. There's a spot at the end of the year where they're going to play 4 road games in 5 weeks. It's a rough break for the Bills. And the Bills, I know, wanted to play that home opener, that first game at the new stadium in prime time, and they got it in week 2. Well, following up with home games in week 3 and week 4, I almost wonder if the league kind of scratched their head and said, Buffalo, we really can't do this for you, but if we really want, here's the deal. You're going to be playing on the road most of the rest of the year, and that's kind of, how it fell out for the Bills after that. Rachel, I want to go back to you with the Houston thing because you did talk about it on Monday real quick. You pointed out that the Bills coaching staff being new might be a problem having to face or not wanting to face Houston week 1, and obviously you're going to stick with that. How much, at least the Bills now have 3 months to get ready for the game, 4 months to get ready for the game. Does that help at all in your mind? I know we had this conversation a little on Monday, but I want to go back to it because you did basically call this.
I think it certainly, no matter if you have more practice time in any regard, it's going to help you, but I don't know if it's the time in between from now knowing you got Houston week 1 up until week 1, if it's really going to matter if it was a difference between weeks 1 and 2, because this Houston defense is just so hard to play, hard to beat, that I don't even know if you could prepare properly for it, especially when, like I said, you've got a new new offensive coordinator, got a new head coach. All of these different moving parts of your wide receiver room looks a little bit different. So much looks different. I know the defense looks a little different more than the offense, but I don't know if even you can truly prepare in these next however many months if it would be any different than what they would do from between week to week in the season. So I think this is, like I said, this is a tough task, and I don't know if the Bills can really prepare for it. I think maybe that's your answer, is that it's going to be tough no matter that they have more time now. I think it's just, Houston defense, what they can be, what they are last year, but it's going to be tough, I think.
Week 1 is going to be a tough matchup. And like you said, we talked a lot about how, you want the optimal time to prepare, and having it be week 1 is the optimal time, but it doesn't matter when you have them. You could have 2 weeks, you could have a full off season, you could have 4 days. They're going to come ready. They've had the Bills number, and I see no reason why it's not going to be the same exact thing on week 1.
Yeah, like I said, these last 2 seasons, the Bills have. You've seen this team, you've seen this Houston defense as good as they've been, and it's still been a challenge for the Bills. I know, like I said, different coaches this year, different players, but I just don't know if from now till then is even enough time to really fully be prepared for what they're going to face week 1.
Let's revisit some more of our predictions from Monday. Real quick, I'll point out that I said the lock 1 o'clock game was going to be the Vikings. That was wrong. The lock primetime game was going to be the Ravens. That was wrong. It's also wrong. So you know what? I'm not going to talk anymore. Caleb, you can take over from here.
I don't know if mine was right either.
Kansas City.
Oh, I did.
Yeah, you were right about that.
Yes, I did say, well, obviously Kansas City, but I think I also said New England. I think I said that my lock was that New England was going to be in a primetime game. And like we said earlier, if we're counting the 4 o'clock, but I think when I said it, just to be honest, I think I meant, a Monday night, Thursday night, whatever game. So that one definitely wasn't. And then I believe I also had, I think I said that they were going to open up week 1 on the road, which I think we all kind of knew. We did record the podcast before they made it official that Detroit was going to be that home game in week 2. But before that, I said that they were going to be on the road, which technically was correct.
I'm still so shocked. I think I had to that there was no way they were not going to play the Patriots in primetime. Like you said, the 4:25 spot is still technically a night game, but I can't believe that they're not in a primetime spot against the Patriots. To me, that is one of the matchups of the year for the Bills. Obviously, you see them twice, so maybe it's not as much as the Kansas City game, but for them to not be in a primetime spot, I really can't believe it. Like I said, Thad, I was willing to bet my firstborn child on this. We went.
I forgot we did that.
This was for me. I was like, this is going to happen. I'll bet anything on it. And the fact that it's not, I'm really surprised that there is not going to be the divisional matchup. I'm just really shocked that this isn't happening. The other primetime matchups are good, but this is one I was completely convinced was going to happen.
Yeah, that's going to be the last time that I use the betting the firstborn child terminology on the show. I mean, I was trying to make a point to really make everybody commit to something, but yeah, that didn't work out for most of us. I'm the one that actually has a firstborn child, and I'm going to have a long conversation when I go home later tonight. Going back to my picks real quick, I think by getting the Ravens and the Vikings game wrong in terms of whether or not they would be featured national window games, I think that just speaks to how good the Bills' schedule is. There's so many good options. There isn't I think the Vikings game is the only one you look at and say, I don't know if that's one I want to put on prime time. And the Vikings, were a team that won 13 games 2 years ago. They've got a brand new quarterback. They've got the best receiver in football, arguably, in Justin Jefferson. So there's a lot of attraction there for sure. It's just this Bills schedule is just littered with really fun, really interesting teams. And you're going to end up with some, head scratchers in terms of what the national windows are going to be just based on how good those teams are. And to that point, I think when you look at the schedule and start thinking, all right, where can the Bills get some wins? Where are they going to have some difficulty? I see two really tough stretches. Number one, the first 5 games of the year, and then number 2, the 5 games up until week, what would be 16, where they play the Chiefs and the Packers and the Patriots and the Bears and the Broncos. I don't think it's in that order, but it is those 5 teams. Of those 2 5-game stretches, and Rachel, we'll start with you, which one do you think is the more difficult for the Bills?
I think it's got to be the Kansas City to Denver stretch. I mean, one, just at the point it is in the season, it's 3 away games, 2 holiday games in that. I mean, there is just a lot more riding, I think, on that stretch of at that point in the season, because if the Bills are, potentially like they were last season, kind of fighting for this playoff spot, that could be a detrimental make or break situation. And you mentioned too that out of those first 5 games, there's a 3-game home stretch. And I think that helps in their favor a lot too, to kind of, because those are some tough opponents to start the year. I mean, Caleb and I were going back and forth. You could start the year 2-3. I mean, there's a 1-4 possibility. I mean, looking into the bye week, I mean, this could be a rough stretch to start for the Bills, but I do think those home games help. So I think that later in the season is maybe the rougher stretch of where they're going to see maybe more of those challenges in those primetime games and those higher stakes, bigger, the lights are brighter, maybe on Christmas and Thanksgiving.
I definitely agree with you. I mean, you already talked about it, that the majority of those games you look at from November 26th against the Chiefs to December 5th, Christmas against the Broncos, you got 3 of those games on the road. All of them, I mean, obviously we've been saying against really, really good teams. You would think that if the Chiefs can be healthy, and depending on when Mahomes comes back, you think that those are all playoff teams. And to have to play 3 of them on the road is really tough. And then, like you said, 3 of them being in prime time as well, 2 of them being on a holiday. I mean, again, like I talked about it earlier, how this team's good enough and these are professional athletes and they should be able to go out there and play their game of football no matter what day it is. But to have to play on Thanksgiving and be away from family, and then have to play on Christmas and be away from family again, it's tough. And especially with that Christmas game being on the road all the way in Denver. It's not like you're on the road down the road in Baltimore or in Cleveland or in even in New England. Like that's a long road trip. So that's going to be really, really tough. And then, I mean, you also bring in the fact that late in the season, who knows what you're looking at injury-wise, who knows where, and I mean, that could be in the Bills' favor too, maybe, I don't want to call anyone out, but Bo Nix isn't super healthy, and all of a sudden that Broncos game becomes a little bit easier, but it could also be not in favor of Buffalo.
There's no doubt that the reason the Broncos game and the Chiefs game are late in the year because the NFL wants Patrick Mahomes and Bo Nix to be as available as possible for those games. And I'm with you guys. That late stretch, not just with the holiday games and the teams they're playing and being on the road, but there's not going to be an opportunity for the Bills to get any sort of rhythm. They're going to play Thursday night, then they're going to play Sunday at 4, then they're going to play, I think, Saturday night, then it's Friday night on Christmas. It's going to be a different week every week, and these guys do prefer the routines. Now, look, the Bills are a team that's kind of gotten used to being out of a routine because of the number of night games they've already played the last few years, but that's still not ideal. I will say, at least for the first 5 games, which is Houston, Detroit, Chargers, Patriots, and then at the Rams. With the Chargers and the Rams, the Chargers are a team that traditionally gets banged up at some point in the year. Catching them week 3, probably not ideal because they're most likely to be healthy. And to a lesser degree, I think the only thing that would hurt the Rams would be if Matt Stafford and or Devontae Adams were injured. The earlier you catch them, the less likely it is for that to happen. I think week 5, though, you're not that early in the year to make it happen. But both those stretches are going to be pretty ridiculously tough. And you guys kind of alluded to it. I want to go through this for a second. So you take those first 5 games, and we'll add in the road trip to the Raiders, which we all assume is a win. Give me a record you think the Bills kind of have to be to where you feel okay about them through 6 games to start the year. I really think 3-3 is probably okay. You'd still have 4 wins, we assume, against the Jets and Dolphins remaining. Plus, the Bills will find their way to 2 or 3 otherwise. The Minnesota game, I think they'll be a pretty decent favorite in as well. But if you're Buffalo and you're thinking, all right, we get to the bye week 7 with that gauntlet to open and then the Raiders, what's the record, Caleb, you think the Bills have to be at to feel good about where they're going when they hit that bye?
I think at the bye you have to be. I agree that like in a bubble, those 6 games, you're like, wow, that's a really tough stretch. If you can get out of that 3-3, you probably feel really good about that. But because of that second really tough stretch that we talked about, I think you have to be out of there 4-2 to feel comfortable, because you know that you've got Baltimore coming out of the bye, which Baltimore's not a cakewalk either. And then you've got, like you said, Minnesota, New York Jets, and then the Miami Dolphins, which you hope, you assume that all of those 3 are probably wins. But then you go into an arguably even tougher stretch. I mean, both me and Rachel just picked that as the tougher stretch. So if you come out of that if you go into the bye 3-3, and then you come out of that other tough stretch 2-3, and you drop a stupid game or you lose to the Ravens, all of a sudden that's 7 losses. And that's kind of where you're starting to border that, all right, is this a playoff team or not? I think that 9-8, 10-7 range is where you kind of get tricky depending on the season. But I think that personally, you got to be 4-2 going into the bye to really feel good about your chances this season.
I would say 3-3, you would feel maybe content, but 4-2
Content's a good
is
word, yeah.
4-2 is where you want to be, because to your point, I mean, you don't have. There's really that middle section of the schedule is your easiest part, and there's still teams in there that, like you said, the Ravens are one of them. You hope that they're going to beat the Jets, the Dolphins, and then you start the Chiefs, and you get back into that hard swing of things again. So I think 3-3, you can still be confident that you can, come out of that bye week and get things together. But in order to feel like you're still, I mean, I know it's obviously going to be so early in the season, but in order to feel like you're still a playoff level team that you can see into the future of, we are going to make a run for the playoffs, I think 4-2 is definitely where you would hope the Bills would be, but I think they could settle for 3-3 and still be okay.
I think it also depends on if they are 3-3, what are those 3 losses looking like? Like if you get hammered by the Texans and then if you lose a bad one to the Raiders, if the Raiders are one of those 3 losses, that's not good. But if you are a close game on the road at the Rams, a close game on the road against the Texans, and maybe you'll lose a close one at home to the Patriots, I feel better about that 3-3 than obviously losing to the Raiders week 6.
Caleb, real quick, could I sell you on 3-3 if one of the wins is a New England game? Because we assume that's the tiebreaker you're going to want to have.
Just talking about the AFC East, yeah, of course. Like, I honestly, yeah, 3-3 with a win over the Patriots. Just looking at the AFC East, I would say yes, but I don't think it's crazy to say that this is, I mean, I know it's kind of a new head coach, a new defensive coordinator. We're kind of trying to mild our expectations on the season. This is still a team, I think, in the building that has expectations to be in contention for a number 1 seed. And if you want that number 1 seed, then you can't sell me on 3-3. You can sell me on 3-3 for number 1 in the AFC East, not number 1 in the AFC.
That's a fair point. I think it's a good way to look at it. Let's go through the schedule, guys, and give me a game that kind of sticks out as fun, interesting, you like where it landed, unique, whatever it is, the reaction. Rachel, you can go first. Kind of the game that stuck out as, wow, that's kind of cool that the Bills are going to play that team then, that part of the year.
I kind of like the idea of the Patriots game, week 13, coming right off of the Chiefs game on Thanksgiving. I mean, this is obviously the Chiefs game is going to be a big game, and then you're going on the road to play New England, which is going to be a challenge no matter where it is in the schedule. But I think it'll be fun to see, obviously, that Thanksgiving game, how that plays out, and then going on the road and having maybe your biggest test up until that point in the season, depending on what, these two teams look like when you get to week 13. But I just think having that Patriots game right after your maybe your like marquee game of the season against the Chiefs is going to be interesting to just see. And it's going to be fun to see what happens. And it's on the road too. That just adds even more of a heightened, where the Bills are at and this final, push that they could potentially make for the playoffs at that point.
We've talked a lot about the Broncos game, but I think that's definitely one that I'm interested in. After that 5-game stretch, what are they going to look like after that? But the one I think I'm more interested in is Baltimore off the bye week. Baltimore's always one of those teams who they're ready to beat you up. That's what they've always been like. These past 2 games against Baltimore has been ones where both sides are just battling it out. And I think to have that game after a bye week, I would. Apologies off the top of my head, I don't know who the Ravens play before Buffalo, but at least Buffalo coming off of a bye is definitely going to be interesting to see.
The one for me, and this is almost like an easy one, Bills-Packers at Lambeau in December. And you think about it as, of course, the Bills and Packers should play in December. What other time would they ever play? But the Bills, when they went to Green Bay 8 years ago, beginning of Josh Allen's career, they played in September. And they only go to Lambeau once every 8 years. So getting the opportunity to put this game in the winter, potentially in the snow. I mean, if there's 2 teams in the NFL that fans think of associated with snow more than Green Bay and Buffalo, I don't know who they are. So to have that game in December where you get the winter wonderland, where we should get a game between 2 really good quarterbacks, teams that very likely be contending for division titles, buys, whatever, I think that's really fun and cool, and I'm looking forward to the Bills having that opportunity. Let's look at the schedule as a whole now as we kind of wrap up here. I'll throw some numbers at you quick from some of the research I did. Number one, every team that plays the Bills this year, the week before, they all play Sunday at 1, except for Miami late in the year, week 17, and their game might still be Sunday at 1. It's one of those deals where it could be Saturday or Sunday. In addition, there is never a time where the Bills have less rest going into the next game, except against the Jets and Raiders, because the Bills play Monday night before both those teams. But the Raiders picked first overall, the Jets picked third overall. They ain't the teams you're worried about this year. So from those 2 points of view, it seems like the schedule fell okay. Let's rank it 1 through 10, 1 being bad, 10 being good. How good a schedule, Caleb, you can go first, do you think the Bills got this year?
Man, that is, coming into it, I thought that I was going to give it a higher ranking because I do really think I like it. But I'm looking at those 2 tough stretches, that's going to be those first 5 games and then those 5 games like we talked about during the holidays. That's going to be your make or break. You're really going to see what Buffalo's bringing to the table this year. I'm going to give it. We're ranking it on like how hard it is or how much we just like the schedule.
Just good and bad. You can take that however you want.
I'm gonna take it as how hard it is, and I'm gonna give it 10 being the hardest, and I'm gonna say 7.5.
I'm kind of with the same perspective. If I'm looking at it from the Bills' perspective, well, okay, if 1 is bad, then I'm thinking like bad is hard. Like, so I'm kind of falling more on that end of things. I gave it a 5, which I obviously is right in the middle, but I just think this is a tough schedule for the Bills. But it could be tougher, but it could be a little bit easier. I think from the perspective of if you're the Bills, this is a tough schedule. But if you're the fan or the person watching the game, this is a fun schedule. Like, this is a fun season. So, I mean, if I'm looking at it from that perspective, I'll bump it up to like a 7 and 8. Like I said, tough schedule for the Bills. But, I mean, as a viewer, I think this is going to be a fun season. And it's I don't think any of these games, I mean, maybe Jets and Miami beside them, none of these games are given. So I think every week is going to be a sit down and you're going to be watching the game for the entirety of it, and it's going to be fun.
It's really just those 4 Jets, Miami games and the Raiders. The other 12 on Buffalo's schedule are all pretty tough. Caleb did flip the ranking, by the way. So if we're going to go hardest to easiest and you gave it a 7.5 because you think it's really hard, then we make it a 2.5. By the way, I came up with the schedule or the ranking system like 45 minutes ago. But anyway, I'm going to go with a 3.5. I'm kind of with you guys. That don't let it happen again. That late stretch in the year where the Bills play all those night games, all those tough teams, and more importantly, 4 out of 5 on the road. When you're talking about opportunities to clinch playoff spots and divisions between weeks 13 and 17, That's a brutal assignment for any team. And it's not three road games in a row. I guess it could be worse, but that is going to be a rough stretch. And again, the Bills had 9 road games this year, so they were going to be stuck no matter what. But ending up with that, I think, is a tough way for it to finish. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of BKL Nightly. Thanks very much for watching. As always, you can find this show on Spotify and on YouTube. For Caleb Carr and Rachel Liebert, I'm Thad Brown. We'll be back with you again on Monday. We'll talk to you then.
Get the Rochester First streaming app today for everything you love from News 8 On Demand, plus exclusive shows you won't see anywhere else. Search ROC and download for free on Roku, Amazon Fire, and Apple TV.